Hello and welcome to Schenectady County's Food Workers Certification course. My name is Jennifer Preeb. I am Director of Environmental Health at Schenectady County Public Health Services. I've been here since 2016 and became Director in 2018. And I am very excited to be able to present this to you. So let's get started. Right off the bat, we're going to start with a video that is a testimonial from a gentleman whose wife suffered from an illness of salmonella and ended up dying. So this is his testimonial recorded from the FDA. I'll have you listen to this first.
Salmonella is the second leading cause of foodborne illness in the U.S. It's the leading cause of food-related hospitalization and death. Salmonella kills over 370 people in the U.S. each year. Sadly, the outbreak you are about to hear resulted in 56 illnesses, 7 hospitalizations, and 1 death. On June 22, 2010, after 7 weeks of hospitalization, Mrs. Zella Pluhoff of Athens, Ohio, passed away from complications caused by foodborne illness. This is an account of her hospitalization and death, as told by her husband, Milton Pluhoff.
My name is Milton Pluhoff. My wife passed away from salmonella poisoning. It's been more than 2 years. It was actually May 1, 2010, and we went to a local restaurant, and they were terribly crowded. It was Mother's Day weekend. My son and wife had special dinner for 2, which was their favorite. They both were affected by salmonella poisoning. She was terribly ill. She went to the hospital it was a Friday night. When my wife was affected by salmonella, there were 38 other cases that night in that restaurant. It was 7 weeks from the time she ate this salmonella infected food till she passed away. The illness of salmonella food poisoning is terribly, terribly painful. My son, who was affected, on Saturday morning when I called 911 to take her to the emergency room, he was unable to get out of bed to even assist me, because I found out that she was sitting in a comfortable chair. She'd made it out there. She was talking on the phone to her daughter in Chicago, and the phone fell out of her hand. And I couldn't walk her to the door. The ambulance people came in, but my son was so weak. Just 12 hours after the eating of this salmonella infected stuff, he couldn't even get out of bed, and she was in worse shape. And she passed away on June 22nd from the complications of salmonella. The real stress on the family was 7 weeks of daily time in the hospital. We incurred a hospital bill at Riverside of $102,000. And I think professional management should sure as heck be aware of the fact that under conditions of pressure of business, that there's also a problem that can arise because of overtaxing the facilities, cutting down on the cooking time, things that I shouldn't have to worry about, because it could be easy for people to rush and serve something that had not been held at proper temperature. And that's exactly what happened. I think that if you can enroll a number of food serving organizations, in the task of helping their workers become aware of the critical importance, besides the profit motive, the critical importance of their work, which is terribly, terribly important because they hold the welfare of many people in their hands. Part of the frustration with food poisoning is that you know it didn't have to happen. That's the thing. It is really stressful that you know it didn't have to happen.
The video that you just watched is the perfect example of why Schenectady County requires a person at each food service establishment to be trained in food safety. We think that if you know how to keep food safe and you know the consequences of what can happen when you don't follow proper food safety protocol, you're going to be much more inclined to follow the rules. When you cook in a public restaurant, you're cooking for your elderly grandma, your toddler nephew, your neighbor who just finished chemo. You're cooking for the vulnerable population just as much as you're cooking for healthy folks. And if making someone seriously ill is not enough for you, do you think that the restaurant that failed to follow the rules, the one from this video, do you think that they are still in business today? No, they were sued, and even if they weren't, the bad publicity probably would have closed their business. So really, keeping food safe, it's not just about being good for your business. It's also very good for public health, which works out well. So our first goal of this course is to increase food safety. We really want to keep food safe to keep our population healthy. Our next goal is to increase communication between you in the food service realm and our department. Through this course, you'll learn our phone numbers and our email addresses, and hopefully it makes us a little more accessible so that you feel comfortable giving us a call or shooting us an email with any questions that you have. We try to be very responsive to anything that comes up. Another goal is to reduce the amount of surveillance we have through inspections. So anytime that we receive a complaint at our office, we need to conduct an inspection of your restaurant. And besides that, we have a regular number of inspections that we need to do for your facilities each year, depending on the risk level of your facility. So ideally, we have less complaints, and that might be through increased food safety in your facility that you might learn through this course. We're also hoping that this course provides you with educational tools to train others. Take this information, print out pages of the required internal temperatures of foods, and post it on your pin board so that everyone knows what the required protocols are within your facility. As an outline for this course, we're going to start with a practice quiz. We're going to see where your food safety knowledge basis is. Back here. We're going to talk a bit about foodborne illnesses and the different organisms that can cause foodborne illness. We're going to go over important numbers and definitions. And then we're going to go through a whole bunch of slides on different pictures that we've taken from the many years of food service inspections throughout the county. And you will kind of play the inspector and we'll see what's wrong with each of the photos. And then as a note here, If you are interested in obtaining your actual certificate for this food safety course, give our office a call for details on taking the exam related to this, so that you can obtain that certificate. So a note about the code here. We are following the New York State Codes, Rules, and Regulations, subpart 14 for this course. That's the current code enacted for the state of New York. You may be aware of other regulations that other states have. This map illustrates that many of the other states in the United States have adopted the FDA's food code, which is a national standard. However, it is only really New York State and California that haven't yet adopted the FDA's food code. It is pretty much impending that the state intends to adopt this. However, at this time, when we are recording in 2023, it has not yet been adopted, and therefore your facilities need to follow subpart 14. So starting out with a quiz here, if you want to get yourself a piece of paper and a pencil and just kind of follow along, you can see what your basis for food safety knowledge is and how much studying you might need to do. The first question, whole uncracked eggs can be contaminated with salmonella bacteria, and this is a true or false? That is true. Salmonella bacteria can be on the outside of eggs, as well as on the inside of eggs. The 2 ready-to-eat foods, which will not be cooked before service, must only be handled with plastic gloves. The key word there is only, and so this is false. Foods could also be handled with a spatula or tongs, deli paper. Some type of barrier needs to be between a ready-to-eat food and your hands. But it doesn't just have to be plastic gloves. Number 3, food should be thawed at room temperature or in the refrigerator. And this is false. This is kind of a tricky one again, since the whole thing is not true. We should not be thawing foods at room temperature ever. Room temperature, as we'll talk about in upcoming slides, is within the danger zone temperature range where maximum bacterial growth can occur. Number 4, food can be contaminated by other foods, utensils, and handling. That is true. All of those things can contaminate foods. Number 5, eggs, dairy products, meat, and poultry are potentially hazardous foods capable of supporting large numbers of bacteria. It's true. Potentially hazardous foods are also known as TCS foods, or time temperature control for safety foods. These are the types of foods that you would think they need to be held in the refrigerator, they need to be held hot. Those are the types of foods that they're capable of having a lot of growth if they're not temperature controlled. Number 6, fresh fruits and vegetables are ready to serve from the supplier. That is false. Most fruits and vegetables need to be washed in a food preparation sink prior to being prepped for service. So the one exception to this would be if you are purchasing a pre-bagged, pre-chopped and prepped type of product that is clearly marked that it has been washed and ready to eat. Number 7, most germs need food, water, warmth, and time to grow. It's true. Most germs or microorganisms, they like a certain range of temperature and a certain amount of water, a certain acidity. They enjoy certain conditions the most and will grow in conditions that are best for them. So that varies a little bit depending on the type of organism, but most of them and most of the harmful ones that can contaminate food, generally, they need water, they need a certain temperature range, and of course, time. Number 8, cutting boards should be cleaned and sanitized between each different use. That is true. So if you're cutting up chicken, some raw chicken, and then you want to cut up some vegetables for a fresh salad, you definitely need to clean and sanitize that cutting board between those uses to prevent cross. Number 9, baked chicken should be reheated and held hot for service at a minimum temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit. That is false. And this is something that you need to memorize your required internal temperatures of foods per subpart 14 of the New York State Code. For chicken, it should be reheated to a minimum internal temperature of 165 degrees and then held hot at 140 degrees. Number 10, staph germs produce a poison in foods that cannot be destroyed by cooking. So this is true, and this is a very important piece that if you take nothing else away from this course, please take this away, that there are certain microorganisms that produce toxins that cannot be destroyed by cooking. So many times when we see a food item that has been sitting out at room temperature for a long time, the operator would like to just reheat that food product and kill off any of the growth of bacteria that has occurred or microorganisms that have occurred. And this is the reason why just cooking it and reheating it is not a fix-all. There are certain germs that will produce toxins that cannot be destroyed by cooking. Number 11, to reduce bacterial growth, food should be cooked quickly, cooled quickly, and reheated quickly. And that's true. And we're talking about ideally, in order to reduce the amount of time that a food product is going through the danger zone temperature range, which is the range between 45 degrees and 140 degrees, we ideally cook quickly, cool quickly, and reheat quickly. Does that mean that you can't slow cook or smoke foods? No, you can still do those things, but in an ideal situation, to reduce bacterial growth, we're doing these processes quickly. Number 12, proper hand washing is one of the best ways to reduce risk of causing foodborne illness. That is true. Proper hand washing is always underestimated. It's the best way to reduce risk of foodborne illness. Number 13, safe food handling temperatures are above 165 for cooking and above 140 or below 45 for holding. That's true. And once again, memorizing your required internal temperatures is key. And then also using a thermometer when you're doing any of these processes for cooking or hot holding is essential. Number 14, food can be stored in large pots only if it is cooled at room temperature first, then placed in the cooler. That's false. We should never be storing food in large pots and then cooling them at room temperature. There's kind of like two no-nos there. Cooling at room temperature is bad. That is, once again, is a temperature zone where a lot of bacterial growth occurs. And then also, in order to quickly cool foods, it's not a good idea to keep them in a large pot, since that is a large amount of condensed area where cool air can't circulate around a product. It's better to split it up into a lot of smaller containers so that cool air can circulate around a larger surface area. Number 15, FDA recommends ground beef be cooked to 140 to kill E. coli bacteria. That is false. Once again, knowing your required internal temperatures, ground beef should be cooked to 158 degrees. That is the instant kill temperature for E. coli bacteria. 16, contaminated foods are usually not changed in appearance, taste, or odor. That is true. You likely will not know that a toxin is in the food, or that a bacterial growth has occurred within the food. Number 17, household bleach or 5.25% sodium hypochlorite is not allowed to sanitize food, equipment, and utensils. That's false. This type of household bleach is one of the most economical types of sanitizers that you could purchase. The proper concentration and solution is typically about a capful of this concentration of bleach in a gallon of water to produce the proper concentration to sanitize any food contact surfaces. Number 18, proper refrigeration kills all bacteria. That is false. Refrigeration really just slows down bacteria growth, but does not kill them. 19, lowering the temperature to freezing or below causes most bacteria to die off and disappear. That is false. Freezing also does not kill bacteria. It pretty much just puts them in a state of hibernation. And then once it's thawed out, they start to move around again and can reproduce. Number 20, the basic procedure for kitchen cleaning requires sanitizing of utensils, equipment, and surfaces after each use. That's true. That is a wonderful basic procedure. And I would say that a better answer would even be sanitizing of utensils, equipment, and surfaces after each different use. You know, you can chop all of your tomatoes. You don't need to sanitize in between each tomato. But if you went from a tomato to a piece of raw chicken, you would definitely want to clean and sanitize between those different uses.